Thanks for tuning into the For Love of the Game podcast, where we uncover the most cherished stories of America's favorite pastime. Woven into the DNA of our country are tales from our backyards and sandlots, summer leagues to the big leagues. Every fan has a personal connection, a memory, resonating in each of us. It takes us on a journey to a time long forgotten, or a moment in our youth. That first time we heard the crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, the smell of the fresh cut grass. And these cherished recollections sit there in the back of our minds, beckoning us back to the game that we know and love, our reason to come back home, a reason for our love of the game. Joining the podcast today is lifelong Royals fan and author of the new book, A Year of Playing Catch, What a Simple Daily Experiment Taught Me About Life, Mr. Ethan Bryan. Ethan, welcome to the show.
Oh, what a joy to be here.
So you have to be a big baseball fan to want to play catch for a year straight. So I got to ask you, where does your fanhood begin for you?
I've really pretty much loved baseball my whole life. There's a kind of like a folklore story that my parents tell. We lived in Kansas City right after Dad graduated vet school. And my mom worked at a preschool, and in the spring of '79, her preschool had a night at then Royal Stadium, now Kauffman Stadium, and so we went, and it went historically long. They closed down the concession stands, they reopened the concession stands, and the Royals won on a home run in the bottom of the 16th inning. Well, I have no recollection of this whatsoever. But that is the time that my fanhood started, my Royals love started. And so over the years, we've tried to figure out, well, which game was it? We have no ticket stubs, no scorecard or anything. And we finally tracked it down. And I think it was April-ish, 1979. Royals played a 16-inning game. George Brett hits for the cycle and wins it with the bottom of the 16th inning home run.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, we're going to say it's that one.
How can you not be just, I guess, trapped into Royals fanhood after that? I mean, what an amazing game to go to. I know you said you don't, have any really recollection of it now, but I'm sure as a kid, it was just what an awesome experience to be at. But
now to follow it up. To follow it up, so 79, Royals lose. 80, they get to go to their first World Series against the Phillies. And my parents got tickets. So they went to the first World Series game, Game 3 in 1980. And I do remember, I would have been 6 years old, sitting in the living room, watching the TV, looking for them. And I'm pretty sure that game went 10 innings. And that was the first game that the Royals won. Cut the Phillies lead down. So that is my earliest distinct baseball memory.
Man, and they didn't take you with them?
No, I was 6.
Yeah, six-year-olds can be a bit of a handful, certainly. But so obviously you're a big Royals fan. Who were some of your favorite players growing up?
Oh, man, the 80s Royals had so many fun players. You've got George Brett, you got Frank White, you got Dan Quisenberry, who I just adored. At one point, I had all of Quisenberry's cards, no longer. Kevin Seitzer, and then in the late 80s, Bo Jackson. I mean, it was so much fun.
Yeah, and obviously Brett, the Hall of Famer, and Bo Jackson. He was a little bit before my time, but just seeing the highlights, and obviously, Sports Center just did the 30 for 30 on him, and what an incredible once in a lifetime kind of athlete. In general, obviously playing football and baseball, but holy smokes! So yeah, that's easy to like guys like that for sure. But
I do have a memory. We took a day trip up there from Springfield, and I got to see Bo Jackson hit a home run with my own eyes, and so that was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it was compared him to like Hercules, right? I mean, that guy was just
yeah,
incredible.
So you've had some pretty unique experiences with the game of baseball. And one in particular, I would say probably a dream come true moment for you. You got to go to the White House in was that 2016 after the Royals won the World Series in 2015.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about that and how in the world did that happen?
So I was working on a book that it was a nonfiction book that has since been published as a fiction story. And so I was working on a book, and I got to interview Josh Earnest, who was the press secretary for Obama, and he's a huge Royals fan. And I was interviewing him and putting some stories together, and said something along the lines of, well, if you need me to come to the White House celebration, I would love to. And his I said, oh, you know how to reach me. You know how to reach me. And he concluded, and it was almost kind of ominous sounding. And he said, well, yes, I do. And I was like, oh, that was kind of creepy. And so in the summer of 2016, we were down in Houston visiting my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, and we're watching the All-Star game. And I'm pretty sure it was Stanton who was just hitting these monster bombs in the home run derby. And I mean, I'm just in awe of how far this guy is hitting the ball. And I just happened to reach over and check email, because I don't know why, because I like email. And I look, and it says something like World Series celebration. And I look, and I scanned it, and I just thought it was junk mail or something, except it had the .gov address. And so I showed it to my wife. I said, this might be legit. And her eyes got big, and we had to fill out, all these forms and everything. And then we look at the date. Well, when we drove to Houston, our van, part of our van died. And so it was in the shop the whole time we were there. And we get this email, and we were expected to be in DC in like 8 days. We're like, this is too good an opportunity to pass up. So we drove home, fixed the van, and took 2 days driving to DC. And what the really interesting part is, just a few months prior, I'd had ankle surgery. I had reconstructive ankle surgery. And the trip to DC was a week before I started therapy. And so that was actually the first time I was walking without a cane or a crutch or anything. I just had a little insert in my shoe, and it really it strengthened. So we get back from DC, I go to therapy, and she said, you just skipped the first month. What have you been doing? I said, well, we've been walking like 5 miles a day, seeing all it. And she's like, I wouldn't recommend that ever, but it worked for you. So there you go, the trip to DC.
That's crazy, and what an amazing experience to put you in the right mindset to get back to therapy as well. But
yeah, exactly.
Did you get a chance to like mingle with the players at all? Did you meet any of those guys?
Well, yes. in the outside the East Room, they had the Marine Band playing, and they had just these incredibly heavy crystal glasses filled with water. What is it? Remarkably hot day, late July, and so we're there drinking water. And as you walk up the stairs, you look over, and there's Eric Hosmer and Wade Davis. And you're like, oh. So my daughter's got picture with Eric Hosmer, Drew Butera, Alex Gordon, Mayor Sly James. I'm trying to remember anyone else off the top of my head. I saw Lou Kochaver, and there several of the players were just there hanging out, and then they'd go back into the private room that was players only, and it was just jaw dropping. And then you look around and you see things that you've literally only seen in history books. Like, I know this painting, I know this couch, I know this window, and it was jaw dropping.
Yeah. No, that is, I mean, once in a lifetime experience. I mean, let alone you get to see your team who you've grown up watching your whole life,
Yeah.
and they just win the World Series. Not to mention just winning the World Series, so you're already on cloud nine. And then yeah, you mix that with the White House, one of the most famous buildings on the planet. Oh man, it's just a recipe for a dream.
It was, it
That's
was,
incredible.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
incredible. So you've been writing for quite some time now. How did you get into that and writing about baseball? Where did that all start?
Um, well, I worked at a church in Kansas City for about for 10, 11 years, and writing was just one of the ways that I processed life. So, sometimes I kept a blog, and sometimes I kept a journal, and it was just the way that I tried to make sense of what was happening around me. And I happened to be writing one day at a coffee shop, and it was literally, I just said it out loud because I honestly don't even know why. But it was something along the lines of, like, what are your bucket list dreams? And then it was a conversation that was taking place at another table, really small coffee shop that like could sit 10 people. And I just happened, for some reason, because I was being sarcastic or whatever, I just said it out loud. Well, I'd like to play catch with Frank White. And the owner of the coffee shop happened to be working that day. And she said, what did you say, Ethan? And I was like, what? I just said I wanted to play catch with Frank White. And she goes, well, his daughter's a really good friend of mine. And I was like, wait, wait, what did you say? And all of a sudden, I mean, in 30-second time, I mean, my pulse tripled. I could just feel my heart beating in my throat, and I start to sweat. And I'm like, what are you telling me? What is going? So we scheduled it for a week later, and there was miscommunication, and we missed the first time we scheduled to play catch. And so then I went back the second day. Now, at this time, I maybe threw a ball 2 or 3 times a year. My daughters are young. I'm everything centered around whatever they're interested in, whether it's soccer or gymnastics or horseback. It's whatever they're doing. And so I literally play catch maybe 2, 3 times a year. And so we meet, and he's dressed in Negro Leagues baseball museum gear, and we talk for a couple of minutes, and we spread out to start throwing. And that first throw hurt so much. And I was just like, oh gosh. And I could feel it in my wrist and my elbow and my shoulders. And he just popped him center, just right in the middle of the chest, every single one, just flicking at his wrist. And I'm throwing it and it hurts. And I mean, I think like literally the next day I had to ice my arm. It was so sore. And for some reason, I went back to the coffee shop and I just wrote about it. What was it like getting to actually do something to cross off your bucket list? And I sent it to a friend. I said, hey, I know you like the Royals like I do. I thought you'd get a kick out of this. Well, he had connections to a magazine, and he sent it to them, and they said, we'd like to publish this. And I was like, again, it was that feeling of, wait, what did you say? This was just a story I sent to a friend. And so the very first piece I was paid to publish was about playing catch with Frank White.
Wow, that's incredible. I think you're definitely at that coffee shop for a reason that day.
Yeah.
Goodness,
Yeah.
that's some divine intervention right there, to say the least.
Yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, what made you come up with the idea then? Obviously, you started, you've been playing catch all your life. And where did the idea to have a catch every single day for a year come from?
So the thing was so at the beginning of 2018, I was working on 2 separate books at the same time and moving them both towards deadline. So my brain space as a writer was full. I was not thinking about that at all. Before Christmas, my youngest daughter, she's an incredible artist, and she gives me a ball that says, Dad, want to play catch? And I kind of thought it was like one of those gift certificates that kids give to their parents, like here's a gift certificate to do the dishes or mow the lawn or whatever. And so on January 1st, I'm just kind of figuring out, where do I want to put this ball? Do I want to put it on my desk? Do I want to put it in the bedroom? Where do I want to put it? And I just looked at it, and for some reason, I just shouted out to her. I said, "Hey, Sophie, you want to go play catch?" And it gets really quiet because she just doesn't care about baseball, period. Baseball is not her thing at all. She's a swimmer. She's a fantastic swimmer, remarkable artist. And then all of a sudden she says, "Outside," and I look, and it's 1 degree. There's no snow on the ground. The sun is shining. It's beautiful, high blue sky like you'd think of in January. And I said, "Sure, outside." And she says, "Well, at a baseball field?" And so I kind of thought, what's close that could be a baseball field that we could get on? And I said, yeah, I thought, yeah, outside, yeah, at a baseball field. And so she gets really quiet for a few minutes again. She goes, "Okay." And so we literally had, I think, like 6 layers of clothes on. And the only thing that is actually exposed to the sun is your hand and your glove hand and your face. And we start out close because it's so cold, and we spread out to probably about 45, 50 feet, and we counted it 30 throws. And I don't even know really why we counted it. And I still have a flip phone to this day, and she had a smartphone. And so I said, "Hey, let's take a selfie. This would be fun. It's January 1st. Why not?" We take a selfie, and I had an old blog. And it was just one of those it was a free WordPress blog, and I have 0 design skills. So it was a piece of crap blog. It looked horrible. It was terrible to navigate and all this kind of stuff. And just for some reason, I put up the picture, something like frozen faces, big smiles, 30 throws, Happy New Year, something like that. So that afternoon, I'm folding laundry. I'm watching one of the college football games. And my oldest daughter, she was taking a break from practicing violin, and she just comes up to me and says, "Well, I'll play catch with you." And I was like, "Really?" And so we stepped out out in the backyard. It had warmed up 5 degrees. And our dog came out with us. And with every throw, the dog is just going bonkers. And it had warmed up just enough that as you exhaled, you fogged over your glasses. And so you're like, "Oh, this is a great way. This is a really safe way to play catch. Here, let me see. Okay, I think it's over here somewhere." So again, we took a picture, and I posted it on this blog. And there was no premeditation to it. I just, January 1st, New Year's, why not? And so we're sitting at the dinner table that night, and we're kind of talking about resolutions and changes and just things that you talk about on January 1st at the dinner table. And they just looked at me and said, "Dad, what would happen if you play catch every day for a whole year?" And I just started laughing. I was like, "Oh, girls, you know what would happen? What would happen is I would need surgery. That is exactly what would happen. And I've had 2 major surgeries, and I don't want any more ever." I think that, and so literally for the next 24 hours, they just pestered me, and they wouldn't stop. "Dad, this is a good idea. You should really consider this. You need to." And so the second day, I played catch with Sophie again. You don't want to give up on something this early, Dad. It's only January 2nd. And just because I did it the same day, we took another picture. I put it on the blog. And then one of my friends in Kansas City was going to be in Springfield the next day. He said, "Hey, saw you play catch with your daughter. I brought my glove with you. You want to meet for catch?" I was like, "Sure, why not?" And it took me about 5 or 6 days until I really said, "This is something." And that's when I jumped in and said, "If I'm going to do this, I'm going to give it everything I've got and see what happens."
Yeah. So the daughters were the driving force.
The fact that they said yes, if they didn't say yes, this doesn't happen. They are the ones who took the risk, who said yes, and who really initiated. So I have them to thank for all of this.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it's so cool because baseball is such a family affair as well. So it's such a cool starting point for you. And obviously when you are starting out, you're excited about it. You got all the juices flowing. But I'm sure, day 80, day 100, you start to be like, all right, this is kind of wearing me down. So, what was your motivation to just stick with it?
Okay. so that was my thought. Like, I really thought that if I did this, I would just burn out. I'd never want to play catch again. I want to get as far away from the sport. And what really happened was that as I did this, I was meeting so many new people and hearing so many news stories that was such a powerful motivator to keep going. And so, I drive my daughters to school and I'm like, Dad, who are you playing catch with today? And some days there were the days where I'll say, oh, well, I'm meeting this person. And some days there are the days like, well, I've got 6 hours to find somebody. I will let you know after school. But there was such a deep joy in hearing other people's stories and connecting with them that I really never lost that motivation all year long. And it's just, even now when I go back and read, remember, like, who did I play catch with on this day a couple of years ago? And I'm like, oh yeah, that was so much fun. That was when we did this and this and this. So it was a privilege.
Yeah. And obviously you mentioned just getting to meet and spend time with these people. What was, I guess, it's probably going to be hard to choose, but you have a favorite experience or like maybe like a top three or five from the year?
I got like a top 500. But oh my gosh, I was going to say, so we took a couple of road trips and going to meet people who saw the story and said, hey, if you come this way, come play catch. And being able just to meet complete strangers for games of catch, some of those were just incredible. Like one of them that jumps to mind right now is Ryan Kellen. And Ryan Kellen lives in Wallingford, Iowa. He's got a population of like 100, maybe 120, something like that. And he was diagnosed with testicular cancer and was very fortunate enough to find it. And long story short, he and his wife moved into the house that used to be the old schoolhouse for the city. And 80 steps out his back door is this field that used to be an old, like a professional softball field where they'd have teams come in and travel and play there. Exactly what you think Moonlight Graham would be doing. And it was completely overgrown and it was a mess. And the city council had talked about making it into a dog park. And he's like, oh no, if there's no place for kids to play ball, they won't. And so he just completely took it on himself to redo this field. He's like pulling weeds by hand. He's making his own drag out of chain link. He's literally just figuring out as he goes. And so we got to play catch on his field. There's a good news to the story. The tennis courts got turned into the dog park. So the dogs need a place too. But we got to go to his field in the middle of northwestern Iowa, play catch, have lunch, and for the last 2 years, the United States, he's a huge Twins fan. And so we've got this divisional rivalry. So anytime Twins and the Royals play, he's like, hey, you want to make a bet? So like the first time this year the Royals and Twins were playing, Twins were fire hot. Royals had lost like 90 in a row or whatever. And he's like, hey, you want to make a bet about this game? I was like, no, not at all. And it was just something like, loser has to change their avatar to the other team. I was like, no, I could not bear seeing a Twins logo next to my face. And then the Royals sweep the Twins. He's like, dude, you would have won. So the next time Royals play the Twins, he's like, hey, you want to make a bet? I was like, no, I'm not going to jinx it. I didn't do it last. What, do you not know baseball? I can't do that. Well, I think the Twins swept him or whatever. But we've maintained this friendship for 2 years, text and email, Facebook, all this kind of stuff. And now he's got teams from like 4 counties that come to his field to practice. Wow. It's just awesome.
That's crazy. I'm getting chills because it's like it's your own Field of Dreams story.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
But there's stories like that the whole year. the whole year. And so I am incredibly humbled and grateful that people trusted me with their stories, and just to be a part, it was just a delight.
Is there anything, I mean, would you do anything different looking back on it?
Would I do anything different? Well, one of the things that I that I emphasized at the beginning is, it is easy to be self-conscious of, well, how do you think I look throwing a ball? And so if I'm going to have a video camera, well, now there's video proof of how awkward and everything. And so we didn't record I'd take a selfie and that was it at the end of the time, but I said, all right, here's the rules. Cameras down. No cameras, no phones. It's just we're stepping away and we're going to engage with the gloves and the ball and each other. And so I don't think we really did. I did a couple early on interviews, and then my dad and I took a trip to Field of Dreams in July. And I think that July trip was really one of the first times that we actually took video footage of playing catch. And so one of the regrets I have, even though it kind of went against the grain of the project, I wish I had some more of that video footage, because it's pretty cool to see. And I have about 2.5, 3 minutes worth of clips. Like I played catch with a guy in a blizzard once. And it was, the snow was falling, so you could hear the snow falling. And I've got like 12 seconds with him, just because I decided this is pretty cool. We need to remember this. But I really wish, as awkward as that sounds, I wish I had more video footage.
No, that's understandable. When would you say that you were like, all right, I'm gonna turn this into a book? I mean, was that how did that come about?
So, like I said, I'm working on 2 other books at the time, and for some reason, sorry about that. The dog just knocked into my table. I committed to writing stories about playing catch with my partners every day. And my mom really, really appreciated the daily updates. Now she gets to follow along with what I'm doing. And so it was about day 70 or 80. I get a text from a friend. He's my writing mentor, Robert Benson. He says, you need to call me. And so I call him. He says, you're writing a book, my friend. I said, no, I'm writing 2. You know this. I'm writing this book, and these are the books that I'm working. We have talked about this. He said, no, not even at all. I said, this catch playing project, this is a book. It's like, what are you talking about? And it had not crossed my mind at all. He says, this is the story that you need to write. And I was just laughing at all. I was like, no, well, I don't even know. No. And so then I get to go to Field of Dreams, play catch with Tim Flattery. And he says, you're going to write about this, right? You're really going to write about this. I said, okay, if I make it to the end of the year, I'll write about it. And so I finished the project, make it to the end of the year. And then all of a sudden I'm like, what in the world? How do I write about this? That is not like a diary and boring and just no one understands. How do I tell this story that is just every single day was infused with joy and hope and wonder and how other people's stories help us to begin to see what is wonderfully good about this world in which we're living. And it was really my dad that gave me some pointers. He said, you just need to make sure that this story really captures the feeling of how you lived it. And so I lucked into a format that really seemed to echo that.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because in the few of your articles I've read, you've mentioned, hope, and you've made the correlation between baseball, life, and faith. Yeah. And there's one actually, I love this. In one of your recent ones, the baseball is hard. article.
Yeah.
Which it's probably the hardest sport on earth. I would definitely say. But you talk about how baseball is hard, but so is life. And I love this excerpt here. He said, "Life in the middle of the hard is when doubt is the answer to every question, and pep talks are needed to put on pants, and every at-bat starts with an 0-2 count." That just struck me. I'm like, I've been there, man. That totally just struck a chord with me. But then, you go on the very next line, but the journey of overcoming conflict can make life great too. And I mean, why do you think baseball is such a great metaphor for life in general?
I was reading a book, and it really caught me by surprise earlier this year. It's by a German luthier who makes violins. And one of the very first sentences of the book is something like, we have lost the ability to create metaphor for life, to look around, that all of life demands to be interpreted. It says, what is required of those of us who are living it is to pay attention to the life that you're living. And so I think one of the things that makes baseball so great is there's the individual aspect. I mean, you've got pitchers, you got hitters, and so you've got, there's that one-on-one, I'm stepping in to see what I can do. There's a community aspect. You cannot play baseball alone. Physically impossible. You will not win alone. You have to win. You have to compete as a team and to take the field as a team. So you've got the best of the individual, the best of the community. The other thing that I think baseball offers us is that there's time. And so, you've got that breathing space in between pitches. You've got the breathing space in between innings, or while a pitching change is being made, while a new hitter is walking up with whatever wonderfully chosen walk-up music he has. So baseball gives us glimpses to pay attention to life as it's happening. And then if we give ourselves the space to reflect, I think it really has some wonderful lessons about what it means to live a good story, to live a good life.
No, that's a great answer, and it just makes me excited to get my hands on your book and dive in. I'd ask you what lessons you learned, but I don't want to give anything away. So we'll leave that at that, and I will move on here to a few rapid fire questions for you. So okay. If you're ready, we'll just knock them off. What is your favorite ballpark food?
Ooh, Dr. Pepper.
All right.
All right. No, I mean, seriously, it's got to be a hot dog.
Yeah, I mean, baseball, like life, is simple, and it doesn't get much better than a dog and a Coca-Cola or a nice cold beer.
Although helmet nachos are pretty sweet too.
Definitely. I like the ballpark I used to work at had ice cream cookie sandwiches. So seventh inning stretch, that was my go-to.
Yes.
So there is speaking of correlations, baseball and food, they just go together. Yes. But what about favorite baseball movie?
Ooh, oh goodness. But the rapid fire answer, I am going to go with League of Their Own.
Such a classic. That is.
The hard is what makes it great.
It's so true. I love Tom Hanks does such a good job in that movie. I love when it's funny because you see his transformation throughout the movie too. And when I think Evelyn, the outfielder, overthrows the cutoff man, he's like, you see him trying to hold back. That's one of my all-time favorite scenes.
Yeah, that's so good.
But yeah, definitely. If you've never seen that movie, go watch it. Do yourself a favor. What about? I mean, obviously, besides your own books, what's your favorite baseball book that you've read?
The Soul of Baseball by Joe Pisnanski. It talks about the year that he spent traveling the country with Buck O'Neill and Buck's adventures in the Negro Leagues. And I read it every spring. I usually read it when the first spring training games start. And so I literally had it on my desk, and then they canceled the spring training. And I was like, oh, when do I read this? What do I do now? And it is so good. And it is a roller coaster of emotions reading that thing.
Yeah. I'll have to check that out. That sounds awesome. I mean, Buck O'Neill was one of baseball's greatest treasures, you know. So many cool stories, and people have such revere and respect for him. So I definitely got to check that out. What was your favorite position to play?
Pitcher. I was a pitcher growing up. And then if I wasn't pitching, I loved second base. And I'm now playing in a men's league and getting my feet wet in corner outfield. And we have a big ballpark, and you have to keep your legs ready for you in the corner outfield positions. But it's I really enjoy it.
Yeah. No, I mean, pitcher, obviously you're involved in every single pitch, but even at second base, you always got to be on your toes. What about what you mentioned? Some of your favorite players growing up. Who do you really enjoy watching today?
Oh man, there are so many amazing players right now. If I'm going to stay with my Royals heart, I love Salvi. I love Whit Merrifield. I love Jorge Soler. We got incredibly new, exciting pitchers, Brady Singer and Chris Bubich. There's a lot of young excitement there. But then, holy cow, Mike Trout. He does stuff that you're like, wait, he goes on paternity leave and comes back and hits like 17 home runs. You're like, how do you do that? And my next one, if you can offer like, if I confess, it's a confession. It's a struggle to say this out loud, but I will say this out loud. There is a player on the New York Yankees. Oh gosh, that was really hard to say that. But he went to the same college I did, Missouri State. And he is this year's home run champion, Luke Voigt. And so he has connections here, and I have friends who know him. And I'm like, wow, I am one step away from a home run champion. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. As much as it pained you to say that, I appreciate that. Being the Yankees fan, it was fun watching what he did.
He was on fire.
Yeah, wasn't. I tell you what, you sometimes you rag on Cashman for some of the moves he's made, but the past couple of years, man, these guys have just been producing that he's picked up. So it's been pretty fun to be a Yankees fan.
I cannot imagine pitching to that lineup.
No,
I mean, there's no breath.
No, it's and they're all 6'4", 6'5".
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be trembling out there on the mound for sure. Speaking of trembling, what's one player you don't want to see coming up in a late inning rally against your Royals?
Oh gosh, man, I think about the Central Division, and there are so many good hitters in the White Sox. Man, their bats are just loaded. I'm trying. A couple years, 2 years ago, is Matt Davidson, who hit something like 12 home runs all season, and 9 of them were against the Royals. I was like, just stop pitching to him. What is the deal with this guy? And it's funny how it seems like every team has their Royals killer, and so goodness, I don't want to see Trout. He's too good.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I don't think anyone would want that guy coming up against your closer.
No Voigt. I don't want to see Voigt. No.
There are quite a few guys, yeah, who could.
Yeah, no kidding.
cause some damage and be pretty pesky. What's one stadium you want to go to that you haven't been to yet?
Boston, Green Monster. Uh, we had talked about the opportunity for me to go and play catch in front of the Green Monster in left field back in, I think it was February or March or so, and do this kind of a contest with the book coming out and play catch with the fan in front of the Green Monster, and I'd get to tour the stadium and see it. And then COVID happens, and we finally like, well, we should put this off for the next year. Just give it some time. It can still happen. Just give it a little bit of time. That was the hardest email. You're like, yeah, you're right. This is the smart thing. You're killing me.
Can we make an exception?
Yeah.
Yep.
So
no,
that's the top.
Fenway's, I've been fortunate enough. It's crazy being a Yankee fan that my dad took the family to Fenway, and that was actually my first game. I was 2 years old, so I just remember how hot it was and having water dumped on my head,
Nice.
and Mo Vaughn running across the infield during warm-ups. Talk about guys you don't want to see coming up.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big dude, but yeah, so that's some irony there being a Yankees fan. Here's a last rapid fire question. What's your favorite MLB uniform of all time?
Ooh, wow. Okay, so the one that just immediately jumped into mind is when you have that Chicago White Sox in the shorts, just because it is hilarious, and I cannot see that without laughing. But just the '80s uniforms. I mean, they had the no buttons, and they were like super tight all over, and everyone wore tall socks. So I'd say '80s uniforms.
Yeah, those powder blue, right?
Yes.
Those are sweet. I give you props for that. Those are one of my favorite too. Just in any team, even I think the Cardinals had that too, but the Phillies back then. But yeah,
yes.
80s was such a good era for baseball.
It was.
Good era. And then how about this one? We'll do an extra innings question. You get to play catch with any individual from baseball history, and you get to play at any stadium in baseball, past or present. Who are you playing catch with, and what stadium are you going to?
Well, since baseball is kind of a game of threes, I'm going to go with three. The last couple of years, I've gotten to be friends with Bill Verdon, and reading his stories. Bill James recently did a defensive run saved, and Bill Verdon was a center fielder for the Pirates in the era of Mickey Mantle. So he's always in Mantle's shadow. And Bill James comes out and says, well, when you compare the stats, it looks like there's no better center fielder than Bill Verdon. Well, he played at Forbes Field, which if you look at these pictures, Forbes Field was like 470 or something to the power. It was just massive out there. And the speed that they had to have to be able to cover that. So number one, Bill Verdon, Forbes Field. Number two, comes easily Jackie at Ebbets. And then the last one, I'm pulling in multiple people, and I'm going to meet Satchel and Buck anywhere they want in KC, because all I'd have to do, I wouldn't ever I just listen, and those two would tell stories all day long, and it would be a delight. Just
the enthusiasm and joy. And yeah, you could just sit there and listen to those two probably for days and be entertained at what they have seen. I mean, goodness, I'm sure that they've seen it all and played with some of the best players in the game of baseball. Yeah.
I got to go to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum a couple of times during the year playing catch. And one of the times I played catch with the president, with Bob Kendrick. And he said, you know what? I heard a new Satchel story. Do you want to hear a new Satchel story? It's like, yeah. And so I got to hear Bob tell me a new story about Satchel, and I put it in the book because I was just completely blown away. It was wonderful. It was fun.
Wow. That's awesome. And Bob is a pretty good storyteller too. I've heard him a few
Yeah, he
times.
is.
Yeah, and he's just got such a passion for the game and the history of the game as well, which is awesome. But Ethan, no, it has been an absolute pleasure. Can you give the folks just some information on where they can buy your book and where can they follow along with all of your exploits and read some of your articles?
Just through the website's the easiest way, ethanbryan.com. You can send me a note there, and I'll probably email you back in about 5 minutes. And I'm currently in the middle of my men's baseball league, which I look forward to these 2 months all year, and my team's going to the semifinals next week, so I'm processing that and doing my workouts and getting my reps in, trying to get ready for the 1 or 2 at bats I'll have on Sunday, and in hopes that we make it to the final. So that's where the storyline is right now. It's looking like, oh gosh, I don't know. It's just crazy. We get 7 games, and that's our season. But so more baseball and life stuff. But ethanbryan.com to be the short answer.
Awesome. All right. Well, best of luck on your semis, and yeah, man, this was certainly a pleasure, and hopefully one day when all this is over here, we'll be able to play catch.
Absolutely. Give my best to your parents, please.
That wraps up today's conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, please give our podcast a like and share it with your friends. And if you have a baseball-related story to tell that you would like to have featured on the show, drop us a line in the comments, or you can send a direct message to our Facebook page. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Jim Tunison, and this is For Love of the Game.